The Learning Tree, Chapter 14, Part 2. His right little finger was nervously rubbing the nubs on his other hand, and his words about Jake sure touched the heart. He paused and went on. Jake was a good sort, a little cranky maybe, but he did lots of good things too, like the time he donated the stained glass window for the church. The talk about Jake brought a new agitation to Newt, and he began rocking back and forth in a little inconsistent rhythms, glancing furtively at his father, uncle, and brother, and before he could halt the words, they were flowing from his mouth. You know, Papa, I did some hoeing for Mr. Kiner yesterday. Jack was coughing out smoke, and Newt thought his father hadn't heard, so he added, I left his place early, though. Rob inclined his head toward Newt. What'd you say, boy? Oh, I just said I'd done a little work for Mr. Kiner lately, a little hoeing. Oh, you did? Pete eyed Newt curiously, and Newt had the feeling that his brother was aware of his cover-up. Sarah entered the room and placed a platter of chicken on the table, and Prissy followed with hot bread and vegetables. Jack took his brother Rob by the arm and led him to his seat at the table. After they were all in place, Sarah called on Newt for the blessing. Lord, make us thankful for what we are about to receive, for the nourishment of our bodies. Amen. Sarah heaped food on Rob's plate and set it before him. There you are, Rob, she said. Thanks, Sarah. Leg, Newt? Yes'm, guess so. Prissy? Same, please. Pete, you and your papa help yourselves. Jack stuffed a napkin in the collar of his white shirt. I declare, I can't for the life of me understand how Silas Newhall could do such a thing. Whiskey'll make a man do lots of crazy things, Rob said. Got Silas over at the jail? Sarah asked. From what I hear, he's at the hospital, pretty well banged up himself. Heard they've been fussing about a week over some money Silas claimed Jake owed him. Who told you that, Pete? Jack asked. Talk about town. Coffee, Rob? Rob dropped his fork. Newt picked it up, wiped it on his napkin, and placed it in his uncle's hands. No thanks, Sarah. Jack chomped the white off a scallion. Well, I'm sure glad 'twasn't a colored man who done it, he said. It'd be trouble sure enough. Yep, we can all be thankful for that, Pete agreed. Poor old Jake, Sarah sighed. He had enough trouble in the last couple of years. Yeah, Jack replied, with the beating the savage boy gave him and all. What about Mary? They say she's been out of her mind ever since it happened. Where is she? Home by herself, Sarah? Nope. She's eat, Newt. She's over at the hospital under Timothy's care. Well, it's a shame, downright dirty shame. Whoever thought it could happen right here, under our very noses? Sin's got no respect for time or place, Jack. You know that. Silas'll probably get life, won't he, Papa? Pete said. Don't see how he can escape it. Seems to me they got him dead to rights. Found him laying right alongside Jake, drunk as a loon. Rob's face lifted before he spoke, and Newt could see the whole table reflected in his black lenses. They still have to prove he's guilty first. Never can tell. Silas is liable to plead self-defense or something. Never can tell till it's all over. Ain't you hungry, Newt? Sarah questioned. Why don't you eat your chicken? Newt shot a side glance at Pete, then picked up the leg and began chewing listlessly. Pete looked away. Got any more coffee, Prissy? What does it mean, getting life, Papa? Newt popped the question while Jack had his mouth full of food. Rob sensed his brother's long delay and cut in. Means he'll go to prison for the rest of his life, Newt. Till he dies? Till he dies, Jack finally answered. Lucky he ain't in Missouri, he'd get death, Pete said, shaking his head. Don't mention such a thing, Pete, Sarah said, getting up. It's just awful to think about such a thing. Sarah served hot mince pie and poured the grown-ups more coffee, and after everyone was finished, several minutes of quiet fell over the table. Newt was apprehensive. Things were worse than he thought. Then his mother was up, taking the dirty dishes off the table. Come on, Prissy, she sighed. Let's clean off the table. At 3 o'clock, Rob asked for his hat and cane. Jack, who'd been dozing on the front porch, called Newt to walk his uncle home. It was a welcome duty for Newt. Sarah wrapped up some cold chicken in a pie and a grocery sack and gave it to Rob. You might get hungry this evening, she warned. Rob took the package and smiled. I might at that, he said. I might at that. Thanks, Sarah. Newt gently took his wrist, helped him off the porch, and they went on their way. A half an hour later, as Newt sauntered back across town, he wrestled with this harsh dilemma. If I tell on Booker, there could be lots of trouble, and all the colored people might call me a snitch. And I'd sure have trouble with Marcus for all the rest of my life. But it ain't right for Silas Newhall to go for prison for something he didn't do, either. Still, Silas is white, and he might get off easy. If I tell on Booker, lots more people might get killed. As he drifted down the quiet road, he suddenly envisioned the blacks and whites of Cherokee Flats fighting each other. Pete and his father swinging clubs at the Motseys and Simpsons and Stocktons, and all the house burning, and people screaming and fighting with guns and knives, and himself fighting Waldo, hitting his head with a rock, and Kirky and some others dragging Booker through the streets with a rope around his neck, and Booker screaming for help, and Marcus trying to get him loose and being knocked down, and his mother rushing in, trying to stop all the fighting, yelling, "Stop it! Stop it!" and Prissy hiding in the bedroom with Grundy, Butsy, and Gin, and Rodney Kavanagh hiding and crying in his big house on the hill with the blacks burning it down. "Hi, Newt." He looked up surprised. It was Waldo Newhall on his bicycle. "Hi. Hi, how you doing, Waldo?" Newt thought Waldo looked very sad. He straddled the seat. Waldo shoved off, stood on the pedals, and pumped the last blocks to the Winger house. Newt got off, thanked him, and started into the yard, wanting to leave Waldo as quickly as possible. "Guess you heard all about the trouble, Pa Zen, huh?" Newt paused and turned back wide-eyed. "Yeah." "Oh, yeah, what's going to happen?" "Don't know. Don't know." "I'm awfully sorry, Waldo." "Think your ma would let you drive me and Blanche over to the hospital to see your pa in a while?" "Blanche ain't got no way to get over there." Why, sure, I can ask for you, Waldo." "Okay, I'll go in with you now so Blanche will know for sure." Sarah was glad to help, so she told Newt to hitch up the horse to the buggy and drive them over. In less than an hour, Newt found himself standing with Blanche and Waldo outside Silas's room. Blanche had cried all the way over, and Waldo wanted Newt to go in with him. "Not in the room," Newt had said. "You can wait outside the door." Blanche knocked, and a nurse peeped out the door and said, "Yes?" "I'm here to see my father," Blanche said tearfully. "Oh," the nurse said, "he's just come to, and I don't think you— Well, hold on a minute." She turned back into the room, leaving the door cracked. "What you getting at, Kirky?" It was Silas's voice. "You know what I'm getting at. You know as well as I do. Jake's dead, and you killed him." "You must be out of your head. Why would I do such a thing?" The nurse came back with Doc Cravens, who stepped outside and closed the door behind him. "You're the Newhall children?" "Yes," Blanche sniffed. "Hello, Newt. What are you doing here?" "He drove us over," Waldo answered quickly. "Well, your father's been under sedatives most of the day. He's coming around now. You wait out here for a few minutes, and I'll take you in to see him." He opened the door and went back in. Kirky's voice came through the opening. "And you done too much blabbing before you pulled it off. That's your trouble, Silas." Cravens shut the door behind him. Blanche started crying again, and Waldo, not knowing what to do, spread out his hands in a helpless gesture and looked at Newt. It was nearly 25 minutes before Doc Cravens called in Blanche and Waldo. While they were inside, Newt sat on the floor and propped himself against the wall. This thing was growing too big for him. Twice in the buggy he'd been inclined to blurt out the truth, to relieve Blanche and Waldo of their anxiety, but confusion more than anything else stopped him. Now his thoughts were becoming even more jumbled, and suddenly he didn't trust himself to ride on the ride back. He got to his feet and started to the exit. He was about to go through the hall door when he heard Blanche crying again as she and Waldo came through the door. "Kirky's staying," Newt thought. It was pitch dark when they got back to the buggy, so Newt and Waldo lit the side lamps. As they rode along in the country darkness, Newt glued his mind to the sound of the crickets in an effort to shut out any other thoughts whatsoever. The three of them were quiet all the way to the Newhall house, and then it was only after Blanche had gone in that Waldo spoke. "You know one thing, Winger?" "What?" Newt asked nervously. "I don't believe Pa killed anybody." Did he say he didn't?" "Yeah, and I can tell when he's telling the truth, 'cause he lies so damn much." "What'd he say?" "Not much. He's still kind of dizzy from those drugs they've been giving him for pain. But he kept saying that he thought he saw someone else there besides Jake. Thinks for sure he did." Newt began chewing his lips. "Did he say what he looked like?" Said he looked colored. He said that sure enough? Yeah, he said it all right, but I don't think anybody much is going to believe him. He's in a tough spot, a real tough spot. Maybe something will happen, Waldo. Can't tell. Can't tell, Newt repeated. Waldo jumped to the ground and thanked Newt, and then moved off toward the house. Newt gazed after him a moment, then drove off. As he rode along, he looked up at the sky. The moon was out, it was full, and the man in it was smiling.